Welcome to the HelenaSips Podcast, where I, Helena Nicklin, talk to creative humans who've built careers doing what they truly love and discover the rituals that keep them grounded and bring them joy. And this week...
I think when you look at French wine culture, it's so interconnected with French food culture. For me, growing up with a French winemaking dad, food and dinner in particular was the big occasion around which everything else kind of fit. It's where you sit and, you share your stories for the day and you taste different things, and it's the centerpiece from which everything else kind of flows, I suppose.
I talked to Alex Watson. Alex Watson comes from a world shaped by hospitality, travel, and an instinctive understanding of how people like to live well. The kind of background where atmosphere matters just as much as what's in the glass. It's hardly surprising when you consider how much time he has spent in France, in and around the family vineyards of Chablis. Before co-founding Renais Gin with his famous sister Emma, a project rooted in sustainability and terroir where the gin is made from the family's upcycled Chablis grapes, Alex spent years immersed in restaurants, feeling the rhythm of service and developing a feel for detail, mood and the small touches that elevate an experience from ordinary to memorable. We speak to him now about that journey and what the French way of life has taught him about the art of living and how to bottle it. Alex Watson, it's wonderful to see you. What's in our glasses today that we are sharing?
Hi Helena, thanks very much for having me. What is in our glasses today? It's a cocktail that we call the Terroir Martini. It's kind of our signature serve at Renais, and something that I think tells the story of myself and my life quite well. It's basically a twist on a dry martini, but where we swap out the vermouth for a little bit of Chablis that my dad makes. So it kind of neatly contains all of the different bits of work from my family and then my work now, all in one little drink.
Oh, it's perfect encapsulation. Why aren't you calling it the terroir-tini? That's what I want to know.
That is a good prompt. That's a good prompt.
That's my gift to you.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. So let's talk about this. So one of the reasons we're speaking is because you have developed this gorgeous new gin brand that's based in Chablis with your sister, Emma. And so because this podcast is a lot about the art of living and ritual, and a lot of that idea for me came from that French concept, I'd really love to hear what you have learned about that through living it yourself while you're out there. So why don't we just start with that question first of all. What does the art of living mean to you?
I suppose my perspective on that will probably be influenced by time spent growing up in France and having good family and friends who still live out there and spending time there. And for me, it probably sounds a bit cliched, but it's taking your time to enjoy things, maybe tackling life at a slightly slower pace where you can kind of savor things, trying to live in the present and enjoy the moment as much as you can. I think the French embody it really well with a couple of quite key concepts, which include things like making sure you take a full hour for lunch, or having friends round for dinner 2 or 3 nights a week when possible, and having these lovely long kind of dinners that wind into the evening, and making sure that you take your holiday as often as possible and make sure that you use it to properly relax and unwind.
So simple, isn't it? But we're in the UK, at least, we're terrible at that. And I think in the US they're even worse.
Yeah.
So how long have your family been based out in Chablis?
Yeah, so my dad got involved in winemaking in Chablis kind of more than 30 years ago. He was actually working as a lawyer in Paris at the time. And my godfather, his best friend, who's the kind of ultimate emblem of being kind of a bon vivant and the lifestyle of French gastronomy and winemaking and enjoying yourself. My dad and this chap, Jean-Paul, became very close friends, and he happened to be a winemaker from this little village in Chablis and took my dad there, and he just kind of fell in love. So throughout all of my life for the last kind of 33 years, my dad has tried to go back to this little village as much as humanly possible and ended up taking us and the family to spend time there. And it's been this very beautiful kind of love affair between our family and this very beautiful, special little village that makes these incredibly distinctive and high quality wines.
Gorgeous. Well, an absolute gift to keep going back to a place like that. And they've accepted you with open arms, bringing some new energy.
Yeah, very sweetly they have. It's the remarkable thing about Chablis as a place and as a wine is that it is this tiny little village, but its reputation is so strong that you will go to wine lists in restaurants all around the world, and all of the other different villages in Burgundy will be listed under Burgundy, but Chablis is Chablis and is its own denomination, although it sits within Burgundy, another protected domination. So it's got this incredible reputation that they're very proud of and very protective of. And they could have really told us to jog on when we started coming in and making the wine as one of the only English families in the region making wine. Right. Or when we started making the gin by upcycling the grapes from the winemaking process from there. We feel very blessed and fortunate that they didn't do that and have kind of, taken us in, which has been lovely.
I'm glad to hear it. So yes, you mentioned gin. We've talked about Renais Gin, which is your baby with your sister.
Yeah.
And made from upcycled, I love upcycled Chablis grapes. Left. Tell us more about that. Where did the idea come from? And talk to its amazing design as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the idea for it came from having spent time working in and around winemaking in Chablis as a teenager, and then when I finished university and I had no idea what I wanted to do, I went back and spent the summer kind of being involved in winemaking and just saw what a labour of love it is for people to make and produce something from the land where you are a victim to extreme weather conditions and how challenging it is. Just 2 years ago, Chablis lost, I think it was 75% of their grape produce from frost and hail and stuff. What? And it just seemed remarkable to me that at the end of that process, once all the grapes had been harvested and the juice was extracted, the grapes would be discarded, and that was the end of it. And then I kind of did some digging and figured out that it was possible to ferment those grape skins along with the lees, which is this kind of little yeast protein that you can get from the tanks, and distill a grape vodka that could be the basis for this very beautiful spirit with a real sense of place that also has this lovely kind of sustainability angle. So it kind of all just came together. I was coming towards the end of my time at Diageo and wanted a new challenge, and luckily I was able to persuade my family and Emma and Dad that it was a good idea, and away we went.
And the design looks like it's had a lot of thought put into it. It's a piece of art.
That's very kind, thank you. I think a lot of thought went into not only the kind of the liquid and, the thought process behind what we wanted the gin to be and to taste like, but the design's so important as well. We kind of wanted it to look Art Nouveau, almost like it could be a perfume bottle from a long time ago, but also somehow look modern and very elegant. And it all just came together. And also, there aren't any yellow gins. There seems to be an unwritten rule that they all have to be blue or green or something. So we thought if we're leaning into that kind of wine angle on the liquid and on the brand, then it would be nice for it to reflect in the package as well.
It really does. And we eat and drink with our eyes. And I think people forget that with drinks a lot, actually. It's obvious more of it with food. And when you were making it, were you trying to appeal to a wine drinking palate, perhaps? Because I've noticed that there is this kind of viscosity that I recognise from wine that I really like. I'm not a massive gin drinker, but this has a mouthfeel that I really enjoy.
Well, that would make me very happy if that was our thing, if we could somehow be associated with being kind of a wine drinker's gin. The way that we went about creating the flavour was to look at some of my favourite tasting notes from Chablis wine and Burgundy wine. So we've got that kind of bright, fresh white grape kind of note. One thing that's really hard to translate from wine to gin is acid structure. Like obviously Chablis is famous for that beautiful, bright, fresh acid note that you get, and you can't really do that with distilled spirits. But we did put a lot of citrus profile into the gin to try and balance it. And then that little hint of sweetness, we actually use a little bit of acacia honey, which also gives a bit of that texture. But grape spirit is very oily and round and smooth, and I would encourage people, if they've not tried a grape distilled gin before, to give it a go, because you can immediately taste the difference in terms of the texture and the character that it puts into the gin.
And you talk about it showing some terroir as well, and I don't know if this is entirely in my mind because I'm very suggestible. But, you know, Chablis is famous, the wine is very famous for having that slightly chalky texture when you roll it around your mouth, which is what people love about it, that lovely dry sapidity, that the chalkiness, essentially. But your first gin, the classic Renais Gin, especially seems to have that slight chalkiness, but I don't know if it's because that's what I was expecting, so I was drawing more out of it. What do you think?
I think people are very suggestible when it comes to flavour, which is why I love to get people to try or taste something first and hear the notes that they would call out of it, because then immediately, as soon as you say, oh, it's distilled with this botanical or that, people just like nod their head and agree. But we actually take limestone from Chablis, and we also use a little bit of rock salt that we add into the process post distillation, so it gives that little bit of salinity and that little bit of minerality, which is great because in Chablis wine, it's kind of what gives it the body and the structure that all of the other flavours kind of play off. And that's what we tried to do with the gin as well, and kind of embody that sense of terroir and place, which for me is the most interesting thing about drinks, is if you can find a product or a drink that embodies a real sense of place. I think that's fascinating.
There's nothing like a proper wine where you can really taste where it's from. And yes, I love that you can pick that out in the gin. There we go. Not mad. Obviously, I'm a professional.
A super taster.
Yeah, that's right. So clearly this is epic in martinis. Is that your favourite serve, or how else would you have it? And would you ever have it neat? Because I would.
To be fair, I love to have it neat. And a martini, well done dry martini, which is how I like it, is basically one step removed from that. So yeah, me personally, I'm not actually drinking loads at the moment. I try and really keep an eye on it. But when I do, and I'm treating myself, the ultimate treat for me is a dry martini. So indulgent, it's so kind of immediate in terms of how it hits you. And actually, because of those kind of citrus notes and those kind of almost slightly sweet notes, the other one that I would really recommend is our riff on a Hugo Spritz. Mm-hmm. Hugo Spritzes are having a real moment right now. That kind of elderflower, fizzy, slightly sweet flavour works really well with the gin as well. And I think people are kind of also looking for elongated serves to drink a bit less, so spritzes in, and that one works really, really well with Renais.
So obviously drinks and hospitality means a lot to you. You worked at Diageo and you have further experience as well. How important is food compared to drink in your family and with you?
It's massive. I think when you look at French wine culture, it's so interconnected with French food culture, and so many dishes that incorporate wine or that are paired with particular wines. So for me, growing up with a French winemaking dad, food and dinner in particular was the big occasion around which everything else kind of fit. It's where you sit and, you share your stories for the day and you taste different things, and it's the centerpiece from which everything else kind of flows, I suppose. My dad's a great cook. I like to think that that I'm an okay cook. I love hosting and having friends round, and yeah, that's kind of my ultimate social occasion, I guess, is kind of getting a group of mates around and cooking a big meal and playing a board game or something.
Oh, nice. And what's your signature dish? Do you have one?
Yeah, a couple. And again, I'm quite influenced by French cuisine. So I make a really good coq au vin. I think that's awesome. And it's actually quite easy. You just kind of chuck everything in there and leave it for a while, and then pair it beautifully with a nice crisp Pinot Noir or something, just to cut through some of the fat and more kind of savoury flavours. I do quite a good Boeuf Bourguignon. Like, again, wine-based dishes that really connect to a particular place. And go really well with pairing your drinks and taking your time and just having a nice meal.
Is glassware important to you?
It is for me in cocktails. In wine, for me, I think it's kind of much of a muchness. Like obviously you should, have a red wine glass for a red wine and white for a white. But beyond that, I don't know if it makes an enormous difference. But I think in cocktails, it makes an enormous difference because it dictates how much ice you can get in there, at what rate the drink warms up. And there's quite a lot of science behind, you need a highball because it compresses the bubbles and it will keep your drink fizzy for longer and so on. So glassware, very important in cocktails. In wine, I think it's easy to get kind of lost in, some kind of pseudoscience. And I've seen a lot of winemakers at dinner just have, one of the kind of mini, almost water carafe style glasses and enjoy a really nice wine out of that and not be too bothered. So yeah, that's my hot take.
No, I like that. I'm surprised because I'm the other way round. Actually, I hadn't thought about it so much with cocktails because, wine glasses to me, I don't need a different one for every grape variety, but
Right.
it has to feel nice in my hand. Or
sure.
It's just a tumbler, which I quite like as well, and
Yeah.
you don't have to think about it, but yeah. Okay, so speaking of family meals, what was on the menu growing up? Was it a lot of coq au vin and boeuf bourguignon, those kind of comfort French foods?
Yeah, my dad is a bit of a showman for dinner. Like it's got to take him at least 4 hours to cook. There's got to be music on in the kitchen. He needs probably about half a bottle of wine to assist him in the cooking process. It's a whole kind of theatre. But I loved it. It made it fun, and I mean he's very particular about the order and the process and the way things had to be done. But I think that's passion. He's a very passionate guy, and I think that gave me a big appreciation for the food that we enjoyed and the wine, and everything has a story and a way that it's done and so on. And yeah, it was a great household to grow up in, to get a sense of appreciation for those things.
Gosh, I can imagine the full multi-sensory package.
Yeah.
So does music play a part for you as well in setting the scene? Do you have playlists when you're entertaining?
Definitely. You have to. It's part of the whole thing, and you've got to have some good music on the go for when you're cooking. I confess, my partner does a lot of the midweek cooking, and I think what I'm describing is probably a slightly romanticized version that I get to do when we have friends around or at the weekend. And bless, we get home from work and then she will kind of tend to just whip something up that's excellent, but is probably a bit less kind of drawn out. But yeah, music also a huge and really important part of my upbringing. Dad was like a choir singer. He's a chorister. My little brother is a grade 8 pianist and singer, and he's in a jazz band that plays in Soho. So yeah, music always a really important part of our household.
And do you subscribe to the Charles Spence point of view that what you're listening to affects what you taste, perhaps? Do you sort of find that anecdotally, or?
I could believe that. I 100% could believe that. I think it's probably the difference between when people say the best Guinness they've ever tasted is in a pub in Ireland where there's someone playing some folk music. I think the setting and the ambience and the environment does have a huge impact on your experience of what you're eating or drinking, for sure. So yeah, without wanting to sound pretentious, I could buy into that.
Don't worry, I'm properly pretentious in this. I know there's actually a name for that, when things taste better on holiday, that Charles Spence, Oxford professor, came up with. Yeah, it'll come to me. I'll mention it in the show notes. But yeah, I think you're right there. You know, that bottle will never taste quite the same on a cold, rainy day in London, will it?
No,
you have to sort of build your own story around it, I think. So are there any other rituals or, things that you've taken from the French way of living that slow you down, calm you down, and make you happy that you've noticed we don't do so much in London or elsewhere?
I think a good sense of humour for things, maybe a slightly mischievous sense of humour that I quite enjoy. Again, probably coming from my godfather, who had a bit of a penchant for jokes and being a bit of a practical joker. And then one which I would say, unfortunately, I haven't been able to carry on since I started Renais, but I would say being quite vigilant about your holiday time and trying not to work, but that's gone out the window, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurism does tend to get in the way, doesn't it? Yes, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you mean.
How about
Um,
you?
oh, very good
What
question.
influences kind of some of your life philosophy around the good life?
It's noticing how stressed I am when I really shouldn't be, and I think now I now live on the Isle of Wight.
Oh, lovely.
Strange move from London, perhaps, but I really love it because it gives me a lot more of what I need. And I really see firsthand what taking breaks does, what noticing the little things in nature does. Just a 5-minute walk down to the seafront where I live is
Oh,
so
lovely.
unbelievably restorative. So yes, for me, it's spending time outside and actually taking those breaks and not pushing through, because I always do my best work after that. And it just sort of it boosts my soul. Thank you for asking. I'm also really, really interested in aromas, smells. I
Mm,
started a perfumery degree, which I'm not going to finish for years
amazing.
online, and it's hard to prioritize it. But just that kind of mindful stopping and smelling, it allows me to access another part of myself. It's very mindful. Bit like when I wine taste professionally, I actually go into a bit of a zone. Have you ever been to those tastings where there are like 200 wines and you're just one after the other? Yes.
No, I mean, I've been to lots of wine events and conferences, and I've not seen or done it in a kind of a professional capacity, but I've gone and tried to taste 60 wines of an afternoon. We used to have a stall at the Sunday Times wine fair and would wander around and do that. But I confess that after after like 10 or whatever, my palate's just frazzled. I don't know how you can do it.
Well, even when you're spitting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still just so much. Like by the end of it, just the level of acidity and the level of everything just kind of overwhelms my palate.
To be fair, that does happen. I've found I've gradually been able to work up over time. And if I haven't done it for ages as well, I really do notice after fewer wines. That's for sure. It's 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours of tasting.
Gosh,
Yeah. I think
that's
I tasted over
extraordinary.
4,000 wines last year. I worked out.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Poor teeth.
Have you tried some of ours before? I'll have to get you some to try if not.
What,
Of
of
our
the
Chablis.
No, I
Yeah.
haven't. I'd love
Okay,
to.
we'll have to remedy that.
Yes, please. So this is Domaine Watson.
Yeah.
Can you buy it in the UK?
Not really. We don't make loads, and it kind of just is sold to family and friends. I mean, I think there's a bit available on their website, but by and large, it's kind of a family and friends thing. And then there's a few different restaurants and bars. My dad sells it at his old college in
Mm.
Oxford and that sort of thing. But it's never really been a commercial enterprise for him. So it's hard to find, but it's worth it. I actually looked it up on Vivino for the first time the other day,
And
and was amazed that there's this. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's got this a wonderful rating and score on there, and it exists in this own little online thing. And I showed it to my dad for the first time, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's
oh,
amazing."
do you do all levels of Chablis? Is it from everything from Petit Chablis up to Grand Cru? And
No, we just make Chablis. Although I think we had some success in getting hold of a little plot that will be a Premier Cru, which I hope that we will have next year. But we also produce a red wine called an Irancy, which is a village just round the corner from Chablis, which is really characterful as well.
is that Pinot Noir?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's Pinot Noir and a little bit of this ancient Roman grape called César, which is very like tannic and very unusual. And it's kind of one of the northernmost Burgundy red wine villages and sits in this really distinctive amphitheatre. The whole village does. It's absolutely beautiful to look at. I would encourage you to Google this village called Irancy. But yeah, the wine from there is so distinctive, and again has got that beautiful acid structure and kind of bright red fruit notes, and it's wonderful.
And crunch.
Yeah.
And it's one of those wines that sort of makes you think you know about wine if you know what it is, right? It's so nice to say, isn't it? Irancy. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I need to get more of that in my life for sure.
Yeah, it's a fun one to bring to a dinner party. If people haven't tried it and you say, "Oh, here's a Burgundy village that you may not have heard, but it's very, very distinctive." It's nice.
You should blind taste them and make them guess it. That's what I do.
Yeah, if you're feeling cruel. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, all the time.
That's my worst nightmare, by the way. I've not, although I kind of have grown up around winemaking and so on, it's not been my industry. I've always worked in kind of hospitality and spirits. So I sometimes get designated as the wine expert, but I don't consider myself to be one at all. Oh. So yeah, sometimes my friends will put me on the spot and say, "Oh, taste this, guess this, guess that," and I'm just always a million miles off.
Well, to be fair, so am I, because I get flustered. If people are watching it, I can't do it. Where annoyingly, my husband, who works in advertising, just nails it straight away because he doesn't overthink it. And I'm like, "Oh, it could be this, it could be that. You're probably testing me because you'll think I'll think it's that."
He's playing mind chess as well. He's kind of several steps along.
Definitely, that's for sure. So coming back to the gin and all the workings of that. So your dad is largely on the wine side, is that right? And are you heading up the gin?
Yes.
Because I know your sister's involved as well, but you're running the day to day.
Yeah, exactly. I'm running the day to day. Emma's studying at Oxford at the moment, which I think, to previous points around being able to slow down and enjoy things a bit, is something that she's really enjoying at the moment. And yeah, it's kind of my passion in the industry, so I head things up kind of day to day.
If I may ask, what has having a sister who's so well known, what has that kind of taught you as a family about balance? Have you really had to go back into those kind of French art of living values of taking your time and not stretching yourself too thin and having boundaries?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I get asked that sometimes, and people are like, "Oh, what's it like to have grown up this way or that?" And I said, my only answer is that I don't really know of it any other way. I guess a lot of things that probably seem really unusual, became quite normal for me. But yeah, I think the more of that kind of craziness that exists, the more it does draw you back to things like family and the basics, the things that kind of matter in your life. Yeah, probably helps kind of to focus or turn you inwards towards family and friends and the simple pleasures.
And noticing just a really good coq au vin, glass of Pinot Noir, friends, good playlist.
Exactly, that's all you need, really.
Yeah. What's next for Renais Gin?
Ooh, next for Renais Gin, we've got some quite exciting stuff happening in the UK this year that hasn't come out yet, so I need to be slightly careful. But I'll kind of talk in broad strokes. Like for the first kind of 2 years, I kind of really wanted to build the brand and cement it in kind of the very top end of the hospitality scene and kind of wine bars and shops and high-end cocktail bars and restaurants. And now this year, it's kind of more about taking it out to a broader, wider consumer audience, and that's really exciting. And there's a couple of things coming up that I think will really help us to do that. So we'll be excited to share in a little bit more detail when I'm able. Yeah, it's super exciting. We're kind of doubling and tripling year on year and going kind of from strength to strength, which is really exciting.
I'm really happy to hear that. I think it's a really beautiful product, honestly. And I'm not just saying that, but just you're bringing me more into gin, and this is a good thing. In moderation.
Thank you. Maybe it can be a gateway gin for wine drinkers. That would make me very happy.
There you are. There's your tagline. Along with the terroir-tini.
Exactly.
Might need some work, to be fair. Okay, final thought, Alex Watson. Do you have a mantra for life that you could share with us?
Gosh, you really put me on the spot there.
Think
I
about it.
would say it ties into some of what I was talking earlier about what it means to live a good life, which is, I think it's a life in balance, taken with enough time to enjoy some of those simple everyday things we were discussing, like, cooking and music and time spent with friends. My mum calls it actually destination happiness, which is this weird idea that there's this thing that you desperately want, and if you get there, whether it's a house or a promotion or whatever, then everything will be good and happy. And I think the older I get, the more I realise that those things that you think might be the thing that suddenly makes your life click and brings you great happiness is probably, it doesn't work out like that. And the things that do make you happy are still going for a walk with a mate and having people around for dinner, and those little everyday pleasures are actually the important ones.
Thank you. Where can we find more information about Renais Gin, and should we be following you on Instagram?
You should come to our Instagram. There's a lot of kind of cocktail recipes and different bits that we're doing in the industry. So,
And your handle is?
I think it's Renais Spirits.
It's at Renais Gin. There's some real gold in there, some lovely serves, and a lot of fun as well. Nice to see you in action on there a lot of the time.
Thank you.
Alex, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been lovely talking to you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when new ones have landed. And I'd love to hear your comments, so do drop them in below or come and find me on the socials at HelenaSips. I also want to hear who you think I should be talking to next, so let me know. Until next time, go well.